Hi guys, and welcome to the third video in the nutrition series. The first two videos have covered performance nutrition and the ways in which this can be altered to achieve a set goal in line with said performance. We're moving on slightly and we're going to look at hypertrophy in terms of macronutrients, more specifically the idea around bodybuilding and the sports more focused on image rather than performance respectively. Quick disclaimer, I am a coach. I quite often work with performance-based clients and the information I'll be sharing is based on the research I've looked into. I'm not a dietitian, and for any in-depth specific knowledge around nutrition, I'd highly recommend you seeking out a dietitian. Okay, so as we know, if we take bodybuilding as an example, there's an off-season phase and a pre-contest phase to consider. With that, the diet of a bodybuilder must adhere to both of these phases and run in line with their training. Now, whether you're IFBB Pro, working towards that, competing for the first time, or you're at amateur level, maybe you just want to change your goals to be more aesthetic and this style of physique appeals to you, it's fine. Whatever the goal, adopting a bodybuilding style of nutrition could be the way forward. The focus of today's episode is all about macronutrients and the role in which they play during the time in which an athlete will train. The three macronutrients we're going to focus on are proteins, fats and carbohydrates. Now notice I started with proteins because they're going to be the main building blocks to begin with. Whatever your goal, your macros must fit in your calories, whether this be a deficit, a surplus or a maintenance. You then work out your macro split in terms of percentages. Now to get the style of physique we're discussing today, you'd want to drop fat percentage nice and low whilst maintaining high levels of muscle mass. Still looking lean, defined and focusing on aesthetic. To do that, studies have looked at the impact of protein. According to various studies, there must be adequate amounts of protein to allow for protein synthesis, which as we know is how our body builds, repairs and replaces muscle tissues, fibres and helps us on the way to improving our skeletal muscle and therefore getting that desired look. Studies suggest that 30% or more protein in line with your caloric split will help to keep loss of muscle to a minimum and hopefully maintain as much lean muscle as possible, particularly during pre-contest phases. We're looking to drop fat percentage down. So in terms of fats, according to studies, reductions in fat such as going from a 40% to a 20% can result in reductions in testosterone levels as well. For performance athletes, this may be a problem as arguably this could show links between decrements in performance, while for physique and bodybuilders, this may not be too much of an issue. That being said, it has been argued that you should only reduce your fat levels to below 20% during the pre-contest phases. This being said, testosterone levels may be shown to be lower anyway during contest preparation. This is just due to your restrictions in your caloric intake. And that's been again argued to impact your testosterone levels. The rest of your macronutrients are made up of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates may be dropped significantly by some athletes and bodybuilders in the style of more of a keto diet in an attempt to burn fat as an energy source, thus lowering the fat percentage levels with the aim to provide a better body composition. As in previous video, we have looked at this in terms of performance and studies did show evidence of limitations and declines in performance. This is something to consider as you will want to train as often as you can in line with your prep and your training plan, whilst also being able to put in maximum effort into your training to obtain the optimal results. This will prove difficult with a lack of carbohydrates, has shown to impair performance while training. Recommendations for bodybuilders show that a 3 to 5 gram of carbohydrates per kilo of body weight a day is optimal depending on your age, fitness levels and target weight. This could see a decrease in caloric intake come into play. So when reductions in carbs may go as low as 1 kg per 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. With that, a study has shown that where protein levels were kept the same in two separate groups, a low carb versus a low fat, that low carb subjects did show a decline in performances whereas low fat didn't. So it's not always about that no carbs before marbs as the saying goes. In terms of macronutrient splits then, it's entirely dependent on the individual on their training plan and which they're doing. So typically you see a lot of 40-30-30 splits in terms of carbs, proteins and fats. That also runs the same with a 40-40-20 in line with what the research has discussed is showing us. So if tracking macros is a whole new world to you, and you're just starting your fitness journey, or it's something you wish to focus more on, I'd aim to hit your protein targets and your calorie targets. Get some results then with your fat loss or your muscle gain, whichever your goal may be. This is a good way to start linking it to your training split as well. After that, you can look to bring in your fat percentage targets in terms of, say, your macronutrients, whether it be a 20% or a 30% in terms of fat target. Obviously look to make the rest up with carbohydrates then. That's just for your fuel and your training and things like that. When you're coming up to contest prep, you might want to start looking at reducing your caloric intake and reducing maybe your carbs and things like that. As these have shown to impact performance, you want to be sort of a bit careful around that area as well. There is arguments for keto diets, performance and things like that, as we've covered in previous videos. As always, I'd recommend going out, trialing what suits you as an individual and each person. So some low carb diets work, for others they just don't. Higher carbohydrate diets see better performances within different individuals. Whatever the way, your proteins have got to be your first step. You've got to make sure you're hitting that protein target to aid to your protein synthesis, which obviously, like we've said, helps build the muscle and get you to where you want to be. So take some time, do some further research into these methods, speak to your coach, your dietitian. Obviously make sure it runs in line with your training. Don't get drawn into trends, magic herbal teas or fat loss supplements. There's actually very little research in there to support these actually making a significant difference. Focus on getting the right calories, splitting your macros effectively, hitting your hydration levels, which we will cover in further videos, and staying consistent with your training plan. And if you have liked this video, guys, please give us some support, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again on the next one. See you later.